welcome to another week in the books. I'm putting on my fuzzy socks and getting ready to recap my reading week with you. For those of you who don't know me, I read a little bit of everything except horror, because everything I read ends up in my dream life and I want to be able to sleep. This week was an okay week as far as weeks go. I was a little under the weather and been hanging out a lot with this guy. This is Middlemarch by George Eliot, for anyone wondering. Can't say being, how far into this am I? Being 607 pages into it that I would recommend it, but I'm tackling it for a project, so I've got to stick with it. But didn't want to get on here to talk about Middlemarch, because hopefully next week that will be a book that you'll hear loads about. But I do have 4 other ones that I did make it through this week, and so let's talk about them. Alright, first up is Sea of Tranquility, which I did as a buddy read. And this book, man, just kind of felt like a fever dream. And I don't know if that's something that the author does on purpose, or if that's just how her stylistic choices come across to me. But I have read some other pieces by this author. I first read Station 11 with an old book club of mine, and I liked Station 11, probably the most of her stuff. And then I read Glass Hotel, and now Sea of Tranquility. And Glass Hotel and Sea of Tranquility, just kind of this loosey-goosey reality that, yeah, fever dream is probably the best way that I can describe how it feels to me. This one in particular plays around with some sci-fi elements, time travel. There are a couple different timelines that you get to see, starting in 1912, present day, and then even in the year 2300 something in the future. People who like to see futuristic projections may enjoy this, because the character who lives so far in the future, she lives on a moon colony. She comes back to the States she comes back to the world to do a book tour. So seeing how that kind of is at play may be interesting to people. But overall, connecting each timeline, there's one character in particular who you're like thinking you see time and time again. And then at a certain point, of course, you understand what his role is, and there's a mystery overarching the whole thing, tying them all together based on a strange anomaly that happens in the Canadian wilderness. Maybe that does sound like a fever dream, how I'm explaining that, a strange anomaly in the Canadian wilderness. But also just know that this author seems to enjoy writing about pandemics, and there were pandemic elements. One character is specifically impacted by a made-up pandemic in the future, but if you're not ready for that, just know that that's in there, or if you don't like reading about that stuff. As for me, I might just be done with this author, because I don't think that I'm such a good audience for the style that she writes in. Alright, next up is Grimoire Noir, and I did have to Google that first word about how to say it, because I've never actually said that out loud before. I probably should have practiced that, maybe, before this video. But anyway, this was a graphic novel, young adult, featuring witches in a contemporary town, a unique magic system to the story, and a mystery about where this one kid's little sister went. I picked it up because, 1, I love every now and then to get into a graphic novel. I think they're just like refreshing for my brain, and when you get one, like this one, that has really fun and good illustrations, it's just, I don't know, it's a great reading experience, a great art experience. My only beef with graphic novels is that I wish they were longer, because I enjoy them so much, at least the ones that I've picked up, that I'm like, man, I want to stay in this story world more. I want to know these characters more. I want to see more of these illustrations. So what can you do though? Anyway, I picked it up because I'm a Stranger Things fan, and that premise of some supernatural thing happening in a small town where someone goes missing, someone's sibling goes missing, and the brother of this little sister decides that he's going to collect some clues, see if there's anything he can do, and he ends up finding out curious things about his town, as far as like the history and how there even came to be witchcraft in his town, and also a curious and important lesson about who gets to wield power and what are you doing with it? What does it mean to wield power? So I thought it was very well done. I wish I could find things about a sequel on the horizon, but so far it just seems like this is a standalone, but would not be disappointed if there was a sequel. This third book is another repeat author for me, Barbara Kingsolver, and it is Demon Copperhead, which came as a recommendation for me from my book nemesis, and I am still feeling a little unsure about how it's all mentally sitting with me and what I'm actually really feeling about the story. I gave it a 3-star rating on Goodreads just because I felt like, technically speaking, Kingsolver is doing some smart things. She knows what she's doing with her words and layering a story, building a story. But also it wasn't an especially pleasant reading experience. We are with Damon, who is also called Demon. Just a kid growing up in Appalachia in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's his sort of growing up story, coming of age. He is born to an addict mother who's always trying to get better, but then that's a rocky road, and other life factors and other people have an impact on that journey and his growing up, and it was just like one traumatic experience after another, after another, after another, and it was exhausting. But also I realized that there is something important about a story being rooted in reality and not shying away from the brutal things that life has to offer. It was just, there was no rest, there was no mental rest, and I mean, we didn't see Demon really get a lot of rest, so there's that. But I do think this is interesting in how other people are reading it and reviewing it, just from looking at my Goodreads account and my friends on there who have read it, because we have anything from 5-star ratings, I'm in the middle, and another friend gave it a 1-star. So this one seems to be really, really loved by the people who love it, and then definitely not for everyone. But if you are looking for an interesting reading experience about growing up in that region of America, because it does have a very strong sense of place, it has a very unique voice, but also you gotta be ready for that climb up trauma hill, because the story is one long journey. And also, just so you know, a lot of people end up dying, and I wasn't expecting that. I didn't think that the body count would be so high. So, do with that what you will. All right, last up is The Cost of Knowing by Brittany Morris, and this is another repeat author. I read her book Slay in 2022, and I thought that was a very well done young adult contemporary fiction. So obviously I had to check out what else she had. And this one, while I didn't love it as much as I loved Slay, it was still well done in the sense that these characters that she's writing are just so easy to root for, even if you see them struggling with something or they make a choice that you're like, why'd you do that? Which I think is really important in protagonists and characters in general, because a perfect character is boring. A perfect character isn't relatable. And the protagonist, Alex, he seemed very relatable and yeah, just easy to be invested in. And he, in this story, he's the main character, has this gift, or maybe a curse, where anything he touches with the palms of his hands, he can then see into the future about, whether that's a couple seconds into the future or the longer he touches it, further down the road. And he happens to get a vision of his brother that is very heartbreaking and upsetting, and he's like, what do I do? Because he can't prevent these visions from coming true. And so the story takes place over a couple of days. This is all very like smooshed into a tight timeline, and a lot of things are happening very quickly. But we really get to see Alex and his brother Isaiah, their dynamic, and it is really lovely. This author has a really great way of writing sibling dynamics that feel real and just heartfelt and thoughtful, and by the end of the story it makes it, you know, the emotional impact exactly what it needs to be. And so I think that, yeah, the way she writes siblings together is really great. The story did get a little clunky with the magic realism piece, because it was just, like, you have to talk about anytime you touch something like dismissing the vision, or just going through that whole rigmarole, and so it got a little clunky, and I don't think it was like as precisely written as it could have been, but I do think that this was a good story that featured some sort of social justice that had a little twist on it, or was through a different lens, which I think can be fun and exciting for any reader, but also for young adults, high schoolers who may be picking this up, get a fresh take on something. So I do recommend this author. I think maybe starting with Slay though, because that one was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was a good book. All right, so that's my week in books, and hopefully next week I'll have a rom-com review on here, since it is Valentine's Day week, and who doesn't love a thematic read? I'm gonna friggin' finish that stupid Middlemarch thing, and if I'm not on here next week talking about that book, someone is allowed to like come and shame me or something, because I gotta finish it. I just have to. I hope you have a very lovely reading week with satisfying reads and good characters, and if there's anything you think that I should be checking out for a future review, just let me know. Thanks for being here.